Jace had never been afraid of space before. He had trained for this. He had learned survival techniques, navigation, and the basics of alien biology. But staring at the shattered hull of his ship, smoking and twisted among the towering trees of the alien jungle, he felt fear claw at his chest. The crash had been sudden. One moment, he was navigating the asteroid belt near the uncharted planet Zythera 9, and the next, the ship had shuddered violently and spun out of control. Now he was here alone, with only his backpack, a small multi-tool and the clothes on his back. The jungle around him was alive in ways that made him uneasy. Towering trees with bark that shimmered like metal swayed in a wind he could not feel. Leaves seemed to shift when he blinked, as if they were watching him. Strange insects glowed softly, flitting between the branches like stars caught in the canopy. From somewhere far away, a deep, resonant sound echoed. It was like the roar of an animal but layered with something almost musical. Jace shook his head and forced himself to focus. First things first, survive. He scanned the wreckage. The ship's outer hull was scorched and bent. The control console was dead. He could salvage a few supplies, water cartridges, rations, and his emergency beacon. But the jungle had already begun to claim what remained. Vines snaked along the metal and small, curious creatures scuttled through the wreck. He hoisted his pack and started walking. Every step he took was cautious. The ground was soft, and he had to avoid plants with sharp, thorn-like leaves. He relied on his basic survival training. Water first, food second, shelter third. The river he found was narrow but flowing. Its water glowed faintly under the alien light, a soft green luminescence. Jace knelt and drank carefully, testing the taste. Surprisingly, it was fresh and clean. He filled his small bottle, relief flooding through him. At least water was not a problem, but food was. He tried eating some of the fruit-like plants around him. Some were sweet. Some had a bitter, almost metallic taste. He realized quickly that the jungle did not forgive mistakes. One fruit made his tongue tingle, another made his stomach churn. He had to learn fast, and trial and error was dangerous. By nightfall, he was exhausted. He needed shelter. He remembered the survival drills. Never sleep on the ground if predators might be nearby. Using a fallen tree and some vines, he managed to lift a platform above the ground. He set up a small fire with the emergency flares from his pack. Sparks hissed when they touched the damp leaves, but he managed a weak flame that would last until dawn. The night was alive with sound. Creatures moved through the undergrowth, some calling to each other in clicks and whistles. At first, Jace could not tell which were dangerous. A glowing snake-like creature slithered close enough for him to see its transparent skin, showing moving patterns inside. He froze. His heart pounded, but it slithered past without noticing him. Morning brought clarity but not comfort. Jace moved cautiously through the jungle, marking his path. He found strange plants that seemed almost intelligent. One plant extended a tendril toward him, recoiling when he moved. Another released spores that glimmered in the air, giving him a brief, dizzying vision of the forest multiplied endlessly. As he walked, he spotted tracks in the soft, wet soil. At first he thought they were animal, but they were not. They were humanoid. He froze, scanning the jungle around him. The tracks were fresh. Whoever or whatever had made them had passed recently. His curiosity overpowered his fear. He followed the tracks cautiously. The jungle seemed to change as he moved deeper. Trees grew closer together. Strange vines hung like curtains, glowing faintly in the dim light. Birds or bird-like creatures crashed through the canopy above, startled by his presence. Then he saw her. A flash of movement, quick and deliberate. A human shape, smaller than him, darted between trees. She paused, peering at him from behind a trunk. She had dark hair, braided with beads and feathers. Her clothing was simple, made from jungle materials fitted to allow quick movement. Marks on her arms and face told him she belonged here. He froze. "Hello," His voice sounded strange in the jungle, soft yet loud against the quiet hum of alien life. She did not answer. Her eyes studied him. Then she disappeared again, moving like a shadow. Jace's mind raced. Who was she? How long had she been here? He had survived alone for hours, maybe a day, but she had the skill of someone who had lived in the jungle for far longer. He decided to follow her from a safe distance. The day passed in careful tracking. He noticed how she moved, agile, careful, completely at home. She used vines as bridges, scaled small cliffs, and seemed to communicate silently with the jungle. Jace realized he was seeing someone who had adapted in ways he could only hope to learn. Finally, she stopped near a small waterfall and crouched, drinking water. He stayed hidden, watching. She hummed softly, a sound that blended with the jungle. Something in the rhythm felt familiar, comforting, even like a song remembered from childhood. Jace swallowed. He had to communicate, but how? Words might scare her. He set down some rations and water at a safe distance, then stepped back and waved cautiously. She watched, eyes narrowing. Then, after a tense moment, she stepped forward. She examined the food carefully, then looked at him. Her eyes widened slightly. She spoke a single word in a strange accent. "Man," Jace nodded. "Yes, I'm human. My name is Jace. I crashed here. I need help." She studied him longer. Finally, she said something that sounded almost like English, though broken. 7 months, no man. Jace's heart skipped a beat. 7 months, he asked. She nodded, eyes wary but curious. Her name was Kayla, she explained slowly through gestures and broken words. Her tribe had disappeared, taken by some unknown force, leaving her alone. She had survived by learning the jungle's rules, trusting its dangers, and avoiding anything that might see her as prey. Over the next few hours, Jace watched her demonstrate survival skills he could only dream of. She showed him edible fruits, hidden water sources, and ways to move silently. He tried to imitate her, fumbling at first but gradually learning. As the sun began to set, he realized something important. Alone, he could survive, maybe even thrive. But with her, he had a chance not only to survive, but to understand the jungle and perhaps uncover its secrets. That night, around a small fire, they sat at a careful distance. Neither spoke much. The jungle was alive with sound, strange creatures calling, leaves rustling, water flowing. Jace felt a strange sense of comfort. He was not alone anymore. Kayla was there, a human presence in a world that was otherwise alien. And somewhere deep in the jungle, hidden beyond sight, the pulse of something ancient seemed to watch them both. Jace did not yet know what it was. But he felt that meeting Kayla was the first step in a journey that would change both their lives forever. The next morning, Jace woke before dawn. The jungle was quiet now, the noises of nocturnal creatures fading as the first light of Zythera 9 spilled through the dense canopy. He stretched and glanced at Kayla, who was already awake. She crouched beside a small fire she had carefully kept alive, arranging some fruits and leaves for breakfast. Her movements were deliberate and precise, each one a testament to the months she had spent surviving alone in this alien world. Jace felt a mix of admiration and humility. He had survived before, yes, but Kayla had done it for 7 months straight without guidance, without help. She glanced up at him briefly, eyes sharp, measuring before returning to her preparations. He approached slowly. "I want to learn," he said softly, holding out his hands to show he meant no harm. "Teach me what you know." Kayla studied him. Her dark eyes, reflective like pools of water, flicked over his expression. Then, after a long moment, she nodded. She pointed toward the dense forest, then to herself, then back at him. The meaning was clear: follow and observe. They moved together through the jungle. Kayla led the way with a confidence Jace could only dream of. She stepped lightly over twisted roots, balanced on vines stretched across streams, and disappeared into thick foliage with ease. Jace stumbled at first, cursing under his breath when a vine whipped across his face or a branch scratched his arm. But he persisted. They arrived at a small clearing where Kayla showed him a collection of edible fruits, roots, and small mushrooms. Each was carefully arranged, some glowing faintly in the alien light. She pointed to each, then made a gesture that implied a warning or a danger. Jace listened, memorized, and repeated the gestures to show he understood. Hours passed as Kayla demonstrated how to catch small animals without killing them unnecessarily, how to find clean water, and how to avoid predators. She taught him how to use the jungle itself as protection, from climbing trees to hiding in foliage. Jace realized that survival here was not just about strength. It was about patience, observation, and respect for the environment. During a brief pause by a river, Jace noticed movement in the water. A long, serpentine creature glided beneath the surface, its scales shimmering like liquid metal. Kayla tensed but did not panic. She whispered something and the creature swerved, avoiding them completely. Jace was amazed. "You can control them?" he asked. Kayla shook her head. She motioned toward him, then toward the river, then pointed at the creature. He understood it was not control but respect. She had learned the creature's habits and adapted. That was survival. By midday, they reached a part of the jungle Jace had never seen before. Towering trees, some hundreds of feet tall, created a green cathedral above them. Strange vines hung like curtains, some glowing faintly. Kayla paused, listening. Her eyes darted around, noticing things Jace would have completely missed. A faint trail of footprints, the subtle rustle of a camouflaged predator, and a patch of plants that released a warning scent when touched. Suddenly, a low growl echoed from the underbrush. A large creature, half feline, half reptile, with eyes like molten gold emerged, its muscles tensed, ready to pounce. Kayla grabbed Jace's arm, dragging him behind a tree. He froze, heart pounding. Kayla crouched, picking up a smooth stone. With precise aim, she struck the creature near its eye. It yowled in pain and retreated slightly, but it did not leave. Jace's instinct was to attack with his fists, but she shook her head, pointing to the creature, then to herself. She gestured patience. Slowly she stepped forward, speaking softly in a language Jace did not understand. The creature hesitated, then, as if convinced, slinked away into the foliage. Jace exhaled shakily. I couldn't have done that," he admitted. Kayla shook her head, then gestured to him. She wanted him to learn, not fight blindly. Survival here was about knowledge and strategy, not brute strength. Jace realized that she had survived not because she was the strongest, but because she was the smartest. As the afternoon wore on, Kayla led him to a hidden grove filled with luminous plants that glowed softly in the dim light. This, she explained through gestures, was her sanctuary. She had found it months ago and returned regularly to rest, gather food, and avoid predators. She even had a small, carved shelter made from vines and leaves, carefully camouflaged. Jace marveled at the ingenuity. He helped her reinforce the shelter, adding some of his supplies from the crashed ship. Working together, they created a small but secure camp. It was the first time Jace felt a spark of real hope. That evening, as the jungle darkened, they sat near a fire, eating fruits and drinking water. Jace noticed something he had not expected. He felt a sense of peace, despite the dangers around them. Kayla's presence was grounding, reassuring. He realized that human connection, friendship, trust, was just as important to survival as food or water. Kayla watched him closely, as if measuring his intentions. She spoke softly, words broken but understandable. "Not hurt, help survive." Jace nodded. He knew she had been alone for 7 months and now, somehow, he had become part of her world. The next day, Kayla led him deeper into the jungle, where they discovered signs of other life. Ancient ruins partially swallowed by the forest. Strange symbols were etched into the stone, glowing faintly in patterns that pulsed like a heartbeat. Kayla pointed to them, then shook her head, warning Jace to stay back. Curiosity overpowered caution. Jace stepped closer, examining the carvings. They seemed alien, older than anything he had studied before. He traced the symbols with his fingers, feeling a subtle vibration. Kayla watched him, eyes wide. Something about the ruins clearly unsettled her. As they explored, Jace noticed faint footprints near the ruins. They were humanoid but unlike Kayla's. They were larger, heavier. He looked at her, trying to gauge her reaction. Kayla's face darkened, her expression tense. She whispered something Jace did not understand, but the meaning was clear: danger. They set up a small perimeter around the ruins, using sticks and vines to create simple alarms. Every sound made them tense, waiting for signs of intruders. Night fell and the jungle came alive with unfamiliar cries. Jace's imagination ran wild. Were these footprints recent? Were there other humans or aliens? Kayla, sensing his worry, touched his arm gently. It was a small gesture, but it spoke volumes. They were in this together. They had survived alone before, but together they had a chance not only to survive but to understand the jungle and its secrets. By midnight, they were both exhausted. They lay near the fire, listening to the jungle hum around them. Jace thought about the strange ruins, the mysterious footprints, and Kayla's skill at surviving here. He realized that she had taught him something more valuable than survival: how to adapt, how to respect life, and how to find hope even in the most alien and hostile places. Before sleep claimed him, Jace looked at Kayla and whispered, "I'm glad I found you." Kayla did not answer in words. Instead, she reached out, placing her hand briefly on his shoulder. In that simple touch, Jace understood what words could not convey. Trust had been built. A partnership had begun. And in the heart of an alien jungle, two humans, strangers until now, had found the first threads of hope in a world that wanted to swallow them whole. The jungle was vast, alive, and full of mysteries. But for the first time, Jace felt that maybe they could face it together. The next morning, the jungle seemed even more alive. Sunlight filtered through the thick canopy, casting golden patterns on the ground. Jace and Kayla packed their small camp and prepared to explore deeper into the ruins. Neither spoke much. The tension in the air was heavy. Both knew that whatever had left footprints here before was still out there somewhere. Kayla led the way, moving with the grace and precision that Jace had come to admire. He followed closely, stepping carefully, matching her rhythm. Every sound in the jungle seemed magnified now: the rustle of leaves, the whisper of a breeze, the distant calls of unknown creatures. It was as if the jungle itself were watching them, waiting to see if they were worthy to continue. As they approached the ruins, Jace noticed the intricate carvings again. They pulsed faintly, almost like they were alive. He touched one carefully, feeling a vibration run through his fingers. Kayla watched, eyes wide. She pointed to the carvings, then to a dark passage leading into the heart of the ruins. She hesitated, then gave a small nod, signaling that they should enter. Inside, the air was cool and damp. The walls glowed faintly, illuminating the strange symbols. Shadows danced across the floor as they moved forward. Jace's heart raced. He had no idea what lay ahead, but he felt a strange mixture of fear and excitement. Kayla stayed close, occasionally glancing back to make sure he was still following. They entered a large chamber. The ceiling stretched high above them, covered in the same glowing symbols. At the center of the room stood a pedestal, and on it rested a device unlike anything Jace had ever seen. It was metallic, sleek, and pulsed with a soft blue light. He stepped forward cautiously, mesmerized by the artifact. Kayla grabbed his arm, stopping him. She pointed to the device, then shook her head. The warning was clear: it was dangerous. Jace studied her expression and nodded. They would have to be careful. Suddenly, a low growl echoed through the chamber. Shadows moved along the walls, forming shapes that were both animal and machine. Guardians. Kayla whispered the word, her voice barely audible. Jace's instincts kicked in. He scanned the chamber for anything that could be used as a weapon. Kayla moved first, using her knowledge of the jungle to leap behind one of the pillars. She grabbed a fallen branch and swung it with precision, striking one of the guardians. Sparks flew as the creature stumbled, giving Jace the chance to act. He picked up a shard of broken metal from the pedestal and hurled it, hitting another guardian. The battle was chaotic. The guardians moved fast, their claws and teeth glinting in the light. Jace and Kayla worked together seamlessly. He would distract one and she would strike from behind. They moved with a rhythm, an unspoken communication that had developed over days of surviving together. Finally, the last guardian fell, sparks flying as it collapsed. Both were panting, covered in sweat and dirt. Jace looked at Kayla, realizing how much he had come to rely on her. She gave him a small, tired smile, and he returned it. They had survived not just by strength but by trust and teamwork. Turning back to the pedestal, Jace studied the device again. He reached out cautiously, remembering Kayla's warning. As his fingers touched it, the device pulsed brighter. Images flashed in his mind, visions of the jungle, of creatures, and of an ancient civilization that had once thrived here. It was a tool, a key, and perhaps a warning all at once. Kayla stepped closer, placing her hand on his shoulder. She seemed to understand the device in ways he could not. Together, they studied it, piecing together its purpose. Jace realized it could be used to protect the jungle, to restore balance, but it could also be dangerous if misused. They had a choice to make. After careful consideration, they decided to leave the device where it was. The jungle had survived for centuries, and it had its own rhythm. Their job was not to control it, but to protect it. They reinforced the pedestal with vines and stones, ensuring that it would remain safe from anyone who might stumble upon it unprepared. As they prepared to leave the chamber, Jace noticed something else. Small humanoid figures carved into the walls, depicting people like Kayla and him, surviving and thriving in the jungle. It was as if the civilization that had built the ruins had known that someone like them would come, someone capable of understanding and respecting the jungle. They emerged from the ruins as the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the forest floor. The jungle was alive, vibrant, and seemingly at peace. Jace felt a deep sense of accomplishment. They had faced the unknown, survived, and learned more than he had ever imagined. Over the next few days, Jace and Kayla continued to explore, mapping safe paths, identifying edible plants, and observing the jungle's creatures. They learned from each other, Kayla from Jace's knowledge of technology and strategy, and Jace from Kayla's intimate understanding of the jungle. Their bond deepened, built on mutual respect, trust, and shared experiences. One evening, as they rested near a river, Kayla spoke softly. 7 months alone. Hard. She gestured to Jace, then at the jungle, then at the ruins. Her meaning was clear. She had survived, but it had not been easy. Now with him, life was different. Jace nodded. "You're not alone anymore," he said. "We face this together." Kayla smiled faintly, a gesture filled with relief and hope. She reached out, taking his hand briefly. It was a small gesture, but for Jace, it meant more than words could express. They were partners, allies, and friends in a world that could have easily swallowed them both. The jungle continued to hum around them, full of life, danger, and mystery. But Jace felt ready. With Kayla by his side, he knew they could survive anything. The artifact remained a secret, the ruins a reminder of the past, and the jungle a living, breathing world that had chosen to accept them. As night fell, they built a small fire and watched the glowing insects dance above them. The stars of Zythra 9 shone through the canopy, distant and cold, but comforting in their presence. Jace realized something profound. Humanity's strength was not just in technology or intelligence, but in adaptability, courage, and connection. In this alien jungle, he had seen the best of human spirit reflected in both himself and Kayla. He glanced at her and she looked back, eyes reflecting the firelight. No words were needed. They had survived, learned, and grown together. They were more than survivors. They were proof that humans could endure, adapt, and thrive, even in a world that seemed designed to break them. The jungle whispered around them, alive with unseen life. But Jace felt calm. They had faced its challenges, respected its rules, and emerged stronger. Together, they would continue to explore, to learn, and to survive. And somewhere deep inside, both of them knew that this was only the beginning of their journey, in a world where danger and wonder walked hand in hand. As they lay near the fire, watching the alien stars twinkle above, Jace thought of everything they had faced: the crash, the jungle, the guardians, the ruins, and he smiled. They had not only survived, they had proven the resilience of the human spirit. And in that alien jungle, under the strange light of an alien sun, hope thrived.